Think back to the last time you noticed someone with a seriously impressive back. Not just wide lats, but real depth. The kind that looks almost sculpted with shadows cutting across it under gym lighting. Most people assume a back like that comes from grinding through 7 or 8 exercises on back day. But that assumption is completely wrong. When researchers attached EMG sensors to trained lifters to measure which movements actually light up the back muscles the most, the results were surprisingly simple. Only 2 exercises clearly dominated the list. One builds width, and the other builds thickness, and the gap between those two and everything else wasn't even close. All the exercises lifters pour their energy into, cable pull-downs, machine rows, TRX rows, every one of them ranked below these 2 when muscle activation was measured. That doesn't mean those exercises are useless, but it does mean they aren't essential. Let's break down exactly what these movements are and why everything else falls behind them. You've seen the first exercise countless times, and you might even include it in your workouts already. The problem is that most lifters perform it in a way that wastes a huge portion of its benefits. The movement is the pull-up. And before you tune out thinking this is obvious, the research comparing it to other back exercises isn't even remotely close. EMG sensors allow researchers to measure exactly how strongly a muscle contracts during an exercise. When scientists compared 8 of the most common back movements, pull-ups consistently finished first for lat activation. In one study, 19 trained men performed pull-ups, lat pull-downs, seated rows, bent-over rows, inverted rows, and TRX variations. Pull-ups produced significantly greater lat recruitment than all 6 of the alternatives. Another study measured lat activation during pull-ups at more than 117% of maximum voluntary contraction. That means the lats were working harder during the movement than they did during a full-force isometric squeeze. None of the other back exercises in that dataset came anywhere close to placing that level of demand on the muscle responsible for building width. The reason pull-ups stand so far above the rest comes down to 2 key factors: range of motion and what researchers call a loaded stretch. When you hang from the bar with your arms completely extended, your lats sit in their longest possible position. As you pull your body upward, those fibers shorten through a much larger arc than almost any other back exercise allows. Compare that to a lat pull-down, where the seated position and cable path limit how far the muscle actually travels. But here's the important part. The real difference between grip variations is minimal. Chin-ups recruit the biceps slightly more, while pull-ups shift a bit more work to the lower traps. Choose whichever grip feels smoothest on your shoulders and elbows, and stick with it. Another study compared wide, medium, and narrow grips, and found that a slightly wider grip did produce marginally higher lat activation, but the difference was so small that it barely matters in real training. Hand position isn't what determines back width. What truly matters is gradually getting stronger at pulling your body from a dead hang through a full range of motion. And this is where things get interesting, because the biggest mistake people make with pull-ups has nothing to do with grip at all. The real issue is partial reps, cutting the bottom of the movement short and jumping up to the bar just to struggle through the top 2/3 of the exercise. The part most people skip, the bottom of the pull-up, is actually the most important. That's where your lats are stretched the most and where the strongest growth signal happens. Starting a rep without a full dead hang, with your arms completely straight, removes the most productive part of the movement. Lower yourself with control. Let your body reach full extension, then begin the pull from that stretched position. Back width is built in that bottom range, not at the top. Pull-ups dominate the vertical plane and build width. The second exercise dominates the horizontal plane and builds the thickness you notice from the side. The bent-over row is something most lifters already do in one form or another, but very few understand why it produces results no pull-up or pull-down can replicate. Between and beneath your shoulder blades sit muscles that rarely get much attention: the middle trapezius, the lower trapezius, and the rhomboids. These are the muscles that create that dense, layered look when someone turns sideways, the kind of thickness that makes a back stand out immediately. That stacked appearance has nothing to do with the lats. It comes entirely from mid-back development. These muscles respond best to one specific action: scapular retraction. That simply means pulling your shoulder blades together against resistance. Pull-ups involve very little of this movement, but it's the driving force behind a properly performed row. EMG data confirms it clearly. When researchers ranked exercises based on middle trapezius activation, bent-over rows, seated rows, and inverted rows occupied the top positions. But one result surprised even the researchers. When barbell rows were compared directly to dumbbell rows in an EMG analysis, the two-arm bent-over dumbbell row showed the highest mid-back activation of any movement tested, outperforming the barbell version. With dumbbells, each arm moves through a slightly longer and more natural path. Since there's no bar hitting your torso and cutting the range of motion short, you can pull farther back, retract your shoulder blades more forcefully, and load the muscles responsible for thickness with greater tension on every rep. There's also a practical advantage that most lifters overlook. Heavy barbell rows place significant stress on your spinal erectors just to hold your torso in position. That might be fine if rowing is the only demanding movement in your week. The issue is that most lifters are also squatting and deadlifting. Lower back fatigue adds up quickly and can start limiting performance in other lifts. Bracing one hand on a bench while rowing with the other removes most of the load from your lower back. That allows the tension to focus almost entirely on the muscles you actually want to grow. More stimulus where it matters and less fatigue where it doesn't. Where you pull the weight during each rep also determines which muscles do the work. This small detail can completely change your rowing results. If you flare your elbow outward and pull the dumbbell toward your chest, more of the work shifts to your rear delts and upper traps. That isn't necessarily bad, but it's not the best choice for building thickness. Driving your elbow straight back along your side and pulling toward your lower rib cage or hip lines the movement up directly with the fibers of the lats and mid-back. That arm path produces the strongest contraction in the muscles responsible for depth and density. Another mistake that quietly ruins rowing progress is ego lifting. Throwing a heavy dumbbell upward with momentum and twisting your body might look impressive, but it takes tension away from the muscles you're trying to train. The mid-traps and rhomboids grow through controlled scapular retraction under load, not by swinging the weight and letting gravity control the descent. Slow down the negative. Pause briefly at the top with your shoulder blade fully squeezed together, then lower the weight with control until your arm hangs straight and you feel a deep stretch through your mid-back. That full cycle, from a hard squeeze to a deep stretch on every rep, is what builds the kind of back thickness you can see even through a hoodie. Now, if pull-ups and heavy rows sound great in theory but feel completely out of reach right now, don't tune out. The same framework still works for you. You just need a slightly different starting point. Pull-ups are where many beginners and older trainees hit a wall immediately. You grab the bar, hang for a moment, and pulling yourself up feels impossible. That doesn't mean this movement pattern isn't for you. It simply means you need a stepping stone. The lat pull-down trains the exact same muscles as the pull-up, the lats, the biceps, and the lower traps, but at a slightly lower intensity. Pull-ups force your entire body weight into the movement, which demands far more overall muscle recruitment. Until you're ready for that, the pull-down gives you the same vertical pulling pattern with adjustable resistance. Begin with a weight that challenges you for about 8 to 12 clean reps. Focus on starting each repetition from a full stretch at the top, with your arms completely extended and the cable pulling your shoulders upward. That stretched position still creates the strongest growth signal even on a machine. As your strength improves, you can move toward band-assisted pull-ups or a counterweight machine that removes part of your body weight. The ultimate goal is a strict body weight pull-up, and there's nothing wrong with building up to it step by step. Your lats don't care whether the resistance comes from a pull-up bar or a cable stack. What matters is tension, stretch, and effort. Rows create a different obstacle for this group. The bent-over dumbbell row is widely accessible in most gyms, but maintaining a hip hinge while pulling can feel uncomfortable or even risky for people dealing with lower back issues or years of joint wear. This is where the chest-supported row becomes a perfect solution. Set an incline bench somewhere between 30 and 45 degrees. Lie face down on it and row 2 dumbbells toward your ribs. Your spine stays supported the entire time, which means the tension goes directly into the mid-traps, rhomboids, and lats without stressing the lower back. EMG research shows that chest-supported rows still produce strong upper back activation while dramatically reducing lumbar load compared to standing bent-over variations. In other words, you get the same muscle-building stimulus with far less stress on your spine. For older trainees, this isn't a downgrade, it's a smarter entry point. It allows you to train the right muscles hard without punishing joints and discs that have already taken years of wear. No matter your experience level, the core principle stays exactly the same, and it's worth stating clearly, the movement pattern matters more than the exact exercise you choose. Vertical pulling develops width, while horizontal pulling builds thickness. Whether your vertical pull is a strict pull-up, a lat pull-down, or a band-assisted chin-up, you're still training the lats through the same plane of motion. And whether your horizontal pull is a heavy one-arm dumbbell row or a lighter chest-supported variation, you're still forcing scapular retraction and loading the mid-back. Start wherever your body allows you to train safely through a full range of motion and gradually increase the weight over time. The lifters who build the most impressive backs aren't the ones who started with the heaviest weights. They're the ones who stayed consistent long enough for progressive overload to do its job, forcing the muscles to adapt and grow. So now you have the 2 key movements, one vertical pull for width and one horizontal pull for thickness. The next question is how much volume you actually need for them to work. The answer might sound almost too simple. 2 working sets per exercise, just 4 total sets for your entire back in one session. Before you dismiss that as too little, think about what a real working set actually requires. This isn't a warm-up, and it's not a casual set where you stop because your program says the number is done. A true working set means pushing to within 1 or 2 reps of complete muscular failure with a weight that genuinely challenges you. The kind of effort where the last rep feels like a battle and you're unsure if another one is even possible. Most people in the gym perform 5 or 6 sets of an exercise and never once reach that level of effort. They're stacking volume for the sake of volume. 3 moderate sets where you stop with plenty left in reserve do far less for muscle growth than 1 set where the muscle is truly pushed to its limit. That's the entire formula. 1 vertical pull for width, 1 horizontal pull for thickness, 2 sets each, twice per week, pushed hard and progressively improved. No filler exercises, no wasted effort. Just the 2 movements that activation data shows outperform everything else for building a back that looks wide from the front and thick from the side. Stop overcomplicating back day and start getting stronger at the exercises that actually deserve your effort. If you found this helpful and want more simple, powerful strategies to stay strong and energized, make sure you subscribe to the channel and join me in the next video.